So you had this Potemkin village set up to welcome the arrival of Chinese communists, starting with President Xi. I mean, it's the least that California communists could do, a little bit of mutual admiration since they're reading from the same Red Book. But it didn't go quite as well as Governor Patrick Bateman and Mayor London Breed wanted.
Oh, it didn't.
Czech TV journalist Bashumil Vostal was capturing what he thought would be a majestic shot, San Francisco's iconic City Lights bookstore steeped in the gathering dusk, when three masked assailants approached with guns pointed. They were heading at my cameraman, aiming a gun at his stomach, one at my head, he said in an interview. The thieves grabbed $18,000 worth of equipment, including a camera, lights, and a tripod, jumped into a getaway car as the Czech journalist futilely tried to memorize the license plate. They took my research, my time, my ideas. That's why I'm angry, Hey, welcome to the party, member of the Czech press corps. You remember, we talked about our friend Eli Steele and his dad Shelby, the great Steele family, doing a documentary work for their forthcoming documentary in San Francisco, and they got their car broken into and all their camera equipment stolen. This is just de rigueur for big city living. That's what we're told. And again, I can't think of San Francisco and everything that's going on and not also bring up the memory of Katie Steinle, because Katie Steinle, who was killed by a person who shouldn't have been in this country, really provided some focus for the Trump administration when it came to not only highlighting angel parents who lost a family member because of someone in this country illegally taking their life, but also the larger issue of border security, which continues, which has reached new levels of chaos, obviously, under this administration after there was some regression to the mean coming out of Obama and into Trump.
I just thought Biden looked so weak, and they were just praising him and falling all over President Xi. I mean, listen to Governor Newsom. Okay, he's spitting in the face of Californians and business owners who have asked, for years to clean up the streets. But then he added something.
Anytime you put on an event, by definition, you have people over your house. You're going to clean up the house. You're going to make sure the kids, make their beds. Yeah. I was just with President Xi. First thing he talked about was San Francisco. First thing he remembered was the Golden Gate Bridge when he was here in 1985. Should have seen the smile on his face. I mean, this place is beloved, and its best days are in front of it, not behind it.
Oh, really?
Exactly. And then they took a moonlight stroll and made out.
Yeah. And then a news crew got held up at gunpoint. Yeah. Best days are behind, in front of us. Mm-hmm.
For more on the momentous Biden-Xi confab, we're pleased to be joined by Steve Moore, economist, Govzilla author. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, I just can't get that image of Xi and Gavin Newsom making out out of my mind.
I think they made out.
Well,
are you jealous?
You said he's a handsome man.
Oh, Amy.
Too soon. Sorry.
But I can top, that story about all the crime in San Francisco and the filth in San Francisco. We can top that in Washington D.C. I don't know if you guys saw the story that the carjackers tried to carjack the cars of the Secret Service agents.
Yes.
Secret Service agents.
Naomi.
Regarding Biden's granddaughter, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
they ever touch those guys?
If anything, she better, make sure he's got his head on a swivel while he's in San Francisco. Don't get too lost in the Golden Gate Bridge, you know what I mean?
Well, we joke about this, but it really is a tragedy. I mean, have you guys been to San Francisco lately?
Yes, I was there a year and a half ago, and I will never, ever go back. I saw things I don't want to see.
Yeah, and it's much worse today than it was a year and a half ago. I mean, it is the ruination of one of America's, greatest cities. And, obviously people listening to the show can know what I'm talking about because the same thing is happening in a little bit more of a slow motion direction in the great city of Chicago. But you get these progressive, left-wing, anti-crime and anti-law enforcement mayors and city councils, and these cities go to crap. And that we had an item in our hotline the other day, guys, that you look at the five of the biggest blue cities in America. I think it was New York, San Francisco, Minneapolis, Chicago, and I forget what the fifth one was. Every one of them has seen anywhere between a 1/3 and 50% reduction in what's called foot traffic in the downtown areas. Now, why does that matter? Because think of the impact that's having on the small businesses, the restaurants, the stores. People aren't going into the cities. They can't buy things in the cities. So it's sad to see our great, once mighty and beautiful cities being destroyed by progressive policies. And what's scary is that I think there's a good chance that Gavin Newsom could be the Democratic nominee. Is he going to do for the country, Amy, what he's done for San Francisco?
That's why I wanted people to hear that soundbite, because it's such a slap in the face for Californians. And because they've been begging him, please, business owners who people are defecating in front of their store, and they're sick of it. And then the one guy, he sprayed the homeless guy to get him out, and then he gets in trouble for doing that.
Yeah. And by the way, you don't have a right to. You don't have a right to free speech anymore in San Francisco, but you do have a right to defecate in front of, on the street corners. And I mean, it's so awful, and it's so easy to fix these things. I mean, no matter what people think of Rudy Giuliani and, his behavior lately, what he did in New York when he came in, that's why he became America's mayor, is he turned that city around in 2 years.
But where did all those homeless people go that they displaced? And I can't wait, and people better be on this to see how soon it is till they come back to the spots that they were once in before the president's visit.
Yeah, isn't that what the communists do? Like, if the foreign leaders come in, they get rid of all the bad. Don't let them see what's going on over here, and that's exactly what's happening. But by the way, the same thing's happening in Oakland. The same thing's happening in Sacramento. The same thing's happening in Los Angeles, although in a little bit, milder pace. But it's sad because I love these great cities. I do. I'm a big fan of Chicago, but I see the same thing.
Well, Grigory Potemkin was a Russian military leader. That's the reference to the Potemkin city that they set up. Yeah, right.
That's a great point, Dan.
So was there anything? I know there was the photo op and the we're going to come together to ban the distribution of the production and distribution of fentanyl. Is there anything that you gleaned from the reporting on the conversation from Biden and Xi that has any relevance to America's economic vitality?
Yes, I learned some very, very good news, really good news, that President Xi is very serious about doing something about climate change.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that's okay. But they said they're not. I mean, curbing fentanyl production. Hey, what does that mean?
Well, this is the thing about the difference between, this is, we believe in realism, what's really happening, and they believe in propaganda. And so, there's only two people in the world who actually believe when President Xi says, "Oh yes, we're going to reduce our carbon emissions." Well, the first one is Joe Biden. The second one is John Kerry, who's the the climate czar. But by the way, you guys know this. I've said it many times on your show. They're building a new coal plant every 3 weeks in China, and so that doesn't sound like they're getting serious about fighting climate change.
And John Kerry was at the table yesterday.
Okay.
By the way, I think they should be. I think number one, there's a big movement, to force China to pay reparations for what they did with COVID, whether it was accidental or whether it's intentional, and everybody has different opinions about that. We now do know pretty definitively that this was released from these, from these labs in Beijing, and they have to pay for what they did to the world. And I don't know if that's hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars, but they covered it up, and that's number one. Number two. This is like hugging. This is like Neville Chamberlain in 1939.
Peace in our time, right? But there's no indication that COVID compensation was part of the conversation.
Oh, I'm sure it was not.
Right. Yeah, I just want to make that clear. Yeah, I mean,
didn't talk about the spy balloon either.
Yeah, if you're trying to placate your enemy, then you're not going to bring up those kind of sticky subjects. And look, whether you like Donald Trump or not, and one thing I did like about Donald Trump was he stood toe-to-toe with President Xi, and he was the first one to call them out for the tyrannical communist regime that they are. And you have to be tough with these people. I don't care if they like us. I just want them to fear us and not to invade Taiwan. I mean, I think probably President Xi's going to go back. Remember that old story about Khrushchev? And he came back from his, visit the U.S. and he said, we're going to bury them. I think that's what President Xi's thinking right now. We're going to bury these people. We don't have a serious precedent.
Speaking of totalitarian gambits, the FCC, we mentioned this yesterday, and this is not getting the attention it deserves, particularly given pronouncements from Republican presidential candidates like Nikki Haley, who seem to be aligned to some extent. The Biden administration, quietly under the auspices of equity, moving to commandeer the internet.
Yep. It's a big story. It is a big story. And what they're doing is that it's all in the name of, as you said, equity and anti-discrimination. So they're basically saying, okay, you want to build a cell tower or an internet, a reception area. It has to be. We have to make sure that this area covers enough Black people and Hispanic people and this kind of people and that kind of people. And this is absurd. We want we can have everyone with internet access in this country and high speed, but to have the job of the Federal Communications Commission is not to be some social welfare agency.
Well, and the implications that moving in this direction would have with respect to freedom online, that's the big question. I mean, in addition to the spend, in addition to the power grab, what would the implication be? Because it's not just about communication, it's also about commerce.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing. This is a really important point. I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago, but I want to say it again. In the 1990s, even under Bill Clinton, who was a Democrat, but the Republicans and the Democrats got together, and for once they did something right. They said, "Hey, we got this new incredible technology. We're gonna just let it be the Wild West. We're gonna make it regulation free and lawsuit free, and we're going to make it tax free." And what happened? The United States became the massive technological leader. We had the biggest spread of internet access, in the history of mankind in a very rapid period. And guess what? We did that without the government. So now the government's going to intervene and say, "Oh, we're going to make sure that everybody has internet." Blah blah blah. I mean, it's just get the government out of the way of the technology industry and the internet, and we'll be fine. But I'm also worried about what this will mean for free speech on the internet.
Speaking of Republicans and Democrats working together, what was your view on essentially, Speaker Johnson doing what Speaker McCarthy did, which is short-term CRs to move past any sort of budget showdown?
Well, look, I think this is about the best you're going to get, and there's nobody who wants to, take a chainsaw to the budget more than I do. I mean, we're borrowing $2 trillion a year. It's outrageous. We're bankrupting our country. Everyone knows it, and yet you've got to again, you have to be a realist here. You've got the Republicans have a 4 or 5 seat majority out of 435 in the House, which is razor thin, and they don't have the Senate and they don't have the White House. And so this is probably the best that you're going to get. And what the Republicans have to do is just say, look, if you think we're spending way too much money, which I bet 98% of the people listening to this show believe is true, then we need a new president. We have to get rid of this regime. And there's no way you're going to be able to bring the spending down as long as you have Joe Biden in the White House. But when we get Gavin Newsom there, that'll solve all the problems.
Steve Moore, economist, Govzilla author. Thanks as always, Steve.
Okay, guys, have a great day. Take care.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
If you're interested in learning about reverse mortgages, call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Tom